So we're going live right now. Let me see if this is working. And where do you practice collaborative law?
In North Carolina. And so we're basically across the entire state of North Carolina. A&R Law is the firm, and we're very excited to be a part of the collaborative push. It is a big part of the future of divorce in America.
And so let's just for the people who don't know about collaborative law. So for all of you who are just joining us now, if you can take a second and I will also you can type in comments or questions in the comment bar, and then I'll read them to Ashley-Nicole. But also if you can take a second and just share this video on your own page and any groups that you're a member of, we really appreciate it. And I will also put this video, the link to the URL in the comment section right now. So Ashley-Nicole,
yes, ma'am.
What happened? So there's two people who are divorcing, and how does this process start?
So the collaborative approach is a settlement-based approach to divorce. So what we're doing is most of the country realizes that this system is broken. And so the person that you're sitting in front of whenever you're hiring a divorce attorney is someone that should reflect your character. And so a lot of people now are adults that were children of their parents' divorce, and they do not want their divorce to mimic what they went through as a child. Therefore, the collaborative push is very large in that people are choosing to settle outside of court. So in collaborative, both parties are represented by their own attorney. This is a more sophisticated process than mediation in that both parties get legal advice. Normally with mediation, you do not get legal advice. You just have a neutral third party that's helping you settle. So that's the other kind of settlement route. Collaborative is a more sophisticated process because both parties have their own attorney. They're receiving legal advice throughout the entire collaborative process, but neither one of those attorneys will take them to litigation. And so they do not have to worry that they're going to be cross-examined. We create what's called the container. And so we're creating a container of communication for our clients so that they can have very hard conversations with us there with them, so that we can help coach them in their communication. So we're really taking the counselor, attorney and counselor at law. We're really kind of pushing more towards that aspect of it to help our clients be able to get through this very emotionally driven process with a rational brain.
So now just a few practical questions about how this would work. Yeah. So the first thing you said is that the lawyers won't take, so there's 3 lawyers involved, if I understand correctly.
There's 2.
There's 2. Okay, so each soon-to-be ex-spouse is represented by counsel.
Correct.
When you said they won't take it to litigation, is that an oath that they take? If they can't reach a collaborative agreement, do they have to find new lawyers? Like what happens?
With the contract. So both parties and both attorneys sign what's called the pledge to participate, which is a contract between all 4 people. And that is what creates the container. It allows the parties to know that neither one of those attorneys is going to be cross-examining them. It also commits both attorneys to settlement. They're not utilizing the tactics. They're not making more money off of animosity. They're making less money off of animosity. So it basically flips the script for the attorney. The faster that they settle, the better that it is for all parties, instead of the converse of that happening, which is that the attorneys generally, they make more money if there's animosity. And so the collaborative process breaks that down. And that pledge is a contract between all parties.
And how else is this different from mediation? Because I've seen good mediation. I've also, probably you have too, heard mediation horror stories of people who think it's a stall tactic or something that they're forced to go through by the courts before they can go to trial, and it's just a big waste of time and doesn't follow. So, because I know a lot of parents are probably, because if you're probably listening to this, you probably didn't have the best divorce, I'm gonna guess, if you're listening to us talking right now. So for those parents who are like, okay, we did go through mediation, it was a joke, and we ended up in trial anyway. How is this different than, and there's good mediation out there, but how is this different from maybe that mediation that people think is kind of a joke, or it's the step that they have to go through?
Right. So there is good mediation out there, but there's a lot of bad mediation. And a big part of that is from an imbalance of power. And so if you go into a mediation, so child custody mediation is court ordered a lot of times. And so that's like a step you have to go through until you get to your temporary custody hearing. That is different in that there's a power imbalance of the parties when they start. And so one of the parties has more of an aggressive personality than the other, has more knowledge of the topic than the other. And the mediator can't really balance the parties out on their power imbalance because they have to stay neutral. So it's not like they can come to the party that's underbalanced to be able to help them rise. They have to stay neutral in the process. They also cannot give actual legal advice. They're not attorneys, so they can't advise both parties at the same time. And so you get no actual legal advice. They're not able to help you balance the power. So if there's an imbalance of power in the session, then you're not going to be able to resolve that. The attorneys are not going to be able to come in to help you resolve that. And so it feels like one person gets beat up a lot of times in a mediation, or they just talk about things from the past constantly because the mediator has no real authority. They're there to help you problem solve, but if both parties don't want to problem solve, you've got a problem. Versus the attorneys are there to be able to not only help the parties problem solve, but kind of move them along the track. Like the collaborative process has a very specific fact pattern, and it's a very specific process. There are 4 sessions, and we've created a beautiful system, and it works very well because we have organized the system for human nature. So it is an understanding of human nature and how people need to process such a difficult situation to be in their lives. And due to that, the process, it works very well, versus mediation is just kind of, you're going to get what you put in. And if both parties aren't bringing their full selves, then you're not going to have an actual process. So those are the big differences.
Now you talk about imbalance of power. What about cases where there is domestic violence or interpartner violence, or emotional and or physical? Is collaborative law suitable in those cases or
More
not?
suitable than mediation. So in mediation, that party, they may not even be able to be in the same room together due to a restraining order or whatever. And if there's been domestic violence, again, the mediator is not going to be able to be there for the victim to be able to help them be able to negotiate for themselves with someone who's generally used to taking advantage of them. And so in the collaborative process, both parties are going to be even because they'll both have their own attorney, and that attorney will be advocating for them in addition to looking out for the best interest of the children and also helping them be efficient in their communication. And so we tell our clients that we're going to try to help you stay the best version of yourself. Instead of the devolved version of yourself, we want you to be the evolved version of yourself. And so if our clients are struggling to communicate, we can step in and say, what they may be meaning to say is, and help condition those responses to where they're not being a calloused reception from the other party that generally is overhearing the words that person has to say.
and how can collaborative law help in a situation where there already is what's sometimes referred to as parental alienation or brainwashing, when there's have you seen cases where
Yeah.
And also, do the collaborative lawyers, do they speak with the children or not at all? How does that work?
So we use child specialists. The child specialists speak with the children, but the collaborative attorneys directly do not speak with the children. The child specialist is allowed to meet with the children individually in very specific types of circumstances where they feel very comfortable. These people are very skilled at helping children feel very comfortable so that they can talk. And they're really the voice that they bring back to the process. So when they speak and they're in the process, they speak as if they're actually Jack or Jane. And so they're saying, this makes me feel uncomfortable when you speak to each other this way because it makes me feel like my life is unstable. Like they're actually speaking for the child. And that's very powerful in the process when the parents are getting into those rhythms that they normally have. And especially if there's a parent trying to alienate the other parent, then the child specialist can come in and say, it really hurts my feelings when you make me feel like I need to hate my father, or when you make me feel like I need to hate my mother, because that I love them and I feel like they're part of me. And it hurts a piece of me to hear you say that. So that's what the child specialist will do, which is incredibly moving. It also gives us a lot of information about what the children actually pick up, which is basically everything. Parents live in this world where they think, oh, they have no idea what's going on. They can regurgitate verbatim 30-minute conversations. Like, it is incredible what they hear through the walls. Wow. And they're so affected by that. And then the child specialist can come in and they can tell them every single thing that those two parents said last night, and the shock on their faces because they think their children are protected. So the big push of the book and of collaborative is children are very aware of what's happening. They know almost everything that's going on. So to actually get along is the point, to actually respect each other and have respectful communication. And in the collaborative process, if a parent is behaving in with a parental alienation angle, then the attorney is going to step in and say, this is what you're doing to your children long term if you continue with this behavior. Because we have training around what is actually happening to children long term and how to help children have the best process out of this so that they're not affected long term. Because that's the big part. Obviously, you know, my book, that's what it really focuses on, is the long-term effects of divorce on children. And so we're really trying to prevent there being more generations of those types of children.
Right. And what I find interesting is, how's the voice of the child brought in? Because I know that you are a huge shared parenting advocate. And you talked in the blog that was just published today on the National Parents Organization website about how this term of primary parent, secondary parent is very damaging. So how do we bring in the voice of the child while still moving, and I always say as close as possible to an equal split? Obviously, it's not 180 days all the time. But so how do you balance that? Because I've also, and you probably have too, in a lot of cases where these custody evaluators come in and they're really trying to figure out who gets more custody. So how do you bring in the voice of the child if your emphasis is shared parenting? How does that work?
So we allow the parents, though, to discuss it. So many factors are going to take away from it being an actual, like, exactly 50-50 split. Like geographic locations are going to be able to prevent us from being able to have exactly 50-50 sometimes. Or if there's a work scenario where one parent is just absolutely unavailable due to their work schedules, then we're not going to be able to have an exactly 50-50. And so in the collaborative process, we're looking at all of those factors. Where are we geographically? What is it that's going to be able to stabilize the children? What is the actual parental schedules, like of the work schedules for the parents? And then the children themselves can voice what their opinion is as to where they want to live and how they want it to flow. But really the point is that when you divorce, the communication with your child and your child's life should change almost none. So they're coming to you or to their other parent to say, I want to be at mom's house tonight because it makes me feel more comfortable. That should be a normal conversation. They should not be affected by having that conversation. And so we want the parents to be comfortable with the ability to have that conversation with the two people. The process itself builds a container that allows the parents to have conversations they would not otherwise be able to have. In the litigation system, they're being put on two opposite corners like boxers in a ring. In the collaborative process, we're putting them together to say, I understand you may hate each other right now. You still decided to procreate and create children. So therefore you're kind of stuck. So we need to just figure out what the rules are of that communication so that the children are unaffected and that you have a peaceful and happy life as well.
And so what advice would you give to parents who, there's probably some listening, is it possible to use collaborative law or some of these techniques if, let's say, you already have a divorce agreement, the custody arrangement, as I'm sure you know about, sometimes they're not being followed, they're not working out, alienating behaviors are going on. Can people use collaborative law or some of these techniques when things have already gone off the rails, let's say? Can you bring it back on track?
Yes. So one of the biggest points of the book is that it's never too late. It's never too late to fix it all. All the children are waiting on is for there to be normal conversation and communication. Like that's what they want. They want to be able to see that things in their life can be normalized, that their parents can get past some things to be able to see through it and through the communication to speak with each other. So the book, The Cure for Divorce Culture, it goes into a lot of tools that parents can use in order to have good communication or to have the perspective that they need to have to be able to pull back a 20,000 foot view instead of staring at the bark on the tree and watching the ant crawl up the bark. You want to stand outside of the woods and see the whole thing. It's very hard to have that perspective in this process. They want to be able to see. But if you have a perspective, if you have a attorney that's helping you to maintain that perspective instead of forcing you to have a terrible perspective, then you're able to maintain yourself and maintain your sense of composure and reality. And that's what helps the children. And so we try to push that with the parents all of the time so that they can understand the tools that are actually helpful for keeping their children safe and in a happy environment and healthy, and the tools that are not helpful. And the book really illustrates a lot of that. With the holidays upcoming, very tense times that we have with parents, and it's very easy to kind of get lost in it, but this is the magic of the holidays, and that's still how the children see it. And so if you have a attorney with integrity, or if you are trying to keep yourself in a place of integrity through the divorce process, it's easier to kind of pull back and see and have those perspectives. This world, the divorce world, is a very, we all know that it is a very dog eat dog world. And unfortunately, it's been created that way in our country, but that culture does not have to exist forever. And it's already started to be broken down over multiple different states are making huge progress in different areas. Obviously, Kentucky's done a great job with the A on the report card. And so it's happening. It's happening all over the country. We have mediation, we have collaborative, we have these big pushes for fathers' rights and mothers' rights, but parents just need to be aware that the family court system is broken. It is a broken system across the entire country, in every state, in every local county. It is a broken system. If you are in it, it's broken. Understand that it's broken. Do not get caught up in its brokenness. You don't have to be a part of the brokenness. You can remove yourself from the brokenness. And there are attorneys that can help you do that. And so collaborative, you can Google search that in your area. The person in front of you just needs to have your same character. And unfortunately, that's just very hard to find.
So one thing that you told me, because we've met a few times in person, so Ashley-Nicole Russell was gracious enough to attend the National Parents Organization Shared Parenting Report Card press conference in New York a few months ago. You also came to the screening of Erasing Family. And one thing you told me that was very interesting is that normally what divorce lawyers say to their clients is, don't communicate with your client, have all communication go through the lawyer, and you say the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you say that? And what are some tips that you can give parents right now to better communicate with, let's be frank, possibly a very tense ex?
Mm-hmm.
There might be some yelling, there might be some anger, there might be hurt feelings. So what can they do in that situation?
So this is a chess game. Every single parent that is in or touching the family court system is in a chess game. Your perspective must be sitting and looking down on the board, looking at all of the parts. And if your perspective is not that perspective, you're not playing chess, you're just a rook on the board. And so that is the most important piece, perspective. At the end of the day, you're either going to let yourself get caught up in a broken system or you're not. And so dealing directly with your co-parent. And so co-parenting, that's really what we're all pushing for, is co-parenting, because that's what makes the world go round with your children. In their little world, if the two of you are co-parenting, then their world is spinning. So they have small plates, tiny little plates. Children have small plates. Adults have huge plates. It is your job to not put your adult mashed potatoes on their tiny plate. Then they have no idea how to become who they are, develop friends, character, and all this other stuff that they're supposed to be doing. When there's a big scoop of adult mashed potatoes, that's all they're focused on, and their brains can't actually comprehend it. So they should be part of none of the conversations. You do not talk to your children about what's going on. They don't need to be aware. And dealing directly with your co-parent, bringing them back to center. It is important for us to make sure that our child is taken care of. We do not want our child to be a part of the statistics of what happens to children out of litigated divorce. I need you to be on the same team with me so that you and I are preventing children from, and look at the statistics in the book. They're dramatic. Suicide rate, substance abuse, alcohol abuse rate, school shootings. It's all very related to this. Parents do not unilaterally want their children to be part of those statistics. So when the parents start talking to each other and through the attorneys, if an attorney is telling you not to talk to your co-parent, that is wrong. You absolutely have to talk to your co-parent. Who else is going to talk? The child? Now the child's just going to carry the information back and forth? No, that's not how that works. If they're telling you that, that's wrong. You don't have to listen to that. They make more money off you doing that. So please see that, take a step back and understand that unless you have a restraining order, there's no reason that you shouldn't be dealing directly with your co-parent. Stay calm at all times. Make sure that you're not in any way, shape, or form having any negative emotion. It's not going to help. If they're having negative emotion, back off. You need to have boundaries. There need to be boundaries in place at all times. If they're treating you poorly, back off. You don't need to be having that conversation at that point. You need to wait and have the conversation when they can be respectful. If they can never be respectful, then you need to take it down to a text or an email format. But boundaries are very important, because if you allow someone to consistently breach your boundary, you're setting a new standard, not them, you are. And so for my parents, constantly I'm having to just remind them that you may have been in a marriage before with this person or in an intimate relationship with them to where you allowed them to violate your boundaries or do this because you were trying to have some give and take. We're not in that place anymore. You need to have very sincere boundaries as to what makes you feel comfortable and what's good for your child. And then don't let those be crossed. It's really important. But really, it's having a sphere of people that are encouraging you to have these types of behaviors and not to get sucked into the tactics of the divorce world and the tactics that the divorce attorneys use, because they're not helpful for anyone, but keeping the conflict going forever.
And so we're beginning to get some questions. I just want to remind people that please ask Ashley-Nicole questions in the chat window and I will read them to her. So one question is, it said that you're getting involved in North Carolina, shared parenting efforts. What are some things that North Carolina is doing better, if any? And how are you helping? That's a very simple question with shared parenting in North Carolina.
So a lot of the judges are going to default. They think that it's best for the parents to both have 50-50 custody unless there's an issue. That's their own personal opinion, though. So they each have individual opinions, but a lot of the judiciary is just starting to see that it's better for there to be shared parenting between the parents. We are working on legislation to present for the next upcoming sitting for shared parenting, a bill that'll be very similar to what Kentucky did.
Yay!
So yeah, so we're working on that now. It's me and another attorney that are working on that. And so we're working towards getting sponsor of that and pushing that forward, but it's being drafted right now. So pretty exciting.
Awesome. And then something I also want to ask you is that how does this affect society as a whole beyond the family? Like, how does this affect, for example, the business community?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we speak a lot with HR and the business communities because when you're involved in this divorce world, the levels of subpoenas, the number of days that you have to take off of work, your lack of productivity at work while you're dealing with, your life seemingly falling apart it's so amazing the amount that the business world is having to shoulder for the brokenness of family court. And that is affecting everyone. And so now we speak with HR departments on how they can assist with employment assistance programs and helping their employees to understand directed counsel that's going to be able to help them instead of counsel that's going to be destructive, or a process that's going to be helpful instead of a process that's going to be destructive, so that they can stay productive at work. We're not having to spend all this money on subpoenas, document production, lack of time at work. It's just it's sad what's happening. Additionally, on a macro level, we're at the lowest marriage rate of all of recorded history right now in the United States of America, lower than the Great Depression and both world wars, because all these generations of children who watch their parents' horrible divorces, now they don't believe in the institution of marriage as much anymore. It's a very scary thing to get married now because of the risk that you're exposing yourself to because of how terrible the family court world has gotten. And so, that's a big piece of our country, and we want to make sure that we protect that. Additionally, with school shootings, 82% of them are related to single parent homes or child custody battles. That's a big deal. We need to be talking about that and what these long-term effects are for children out of litigated divorce.
Mm-hmm. So now I have a question for you from Randy Stone, and this is a tough question, Ashley-Nicole. Okay, so it's a little long, but she asked a very good question. What is your best advice for vexatious litigation? And you can probably define that for people who don't know. When you're in a high conflict custody battle or divorce, there can be issues with litigation harassment. As a lawyer, how do you handle this? What is your advice for the parent? I am a parent who has had 8 different actions filed on me in 4 years with no hope of peace.
It is unfortunate. So when you get into the world of the vicious litigation, basically it's a money game at that point. To be able to alleviate yourself and find government resources to help you. So for instance, if you are dealing with child support, then it might be that the Department of Social Services can be helping you with that. There are some legal aid communities that can help people have assistance. But dealing with litigation, the biggest and most helpful way to deal with litigation is to find an attorney, if you're able to hire an attorney, that does not engage in that type of process. So you want to have a settlement attorney that's going to de-escalate everything, because if your spouse has an escalating attorney and you hire an escalating attorney, you're never getting out. But if one person has an escalating attorney and the other person has a de-escalating attorney, now we have hope. So finding someone who's able to help you identify the most efficient, succinct path out of it is important. And that takes knowing what questions to ask the attorney that you're hiring. Efficiency should be one of them. Understanding that they want to help you settle and get out of it. I mean, you've got to read the cues of the person who you're hiring. This is a really scary time, and people start acting out of fear a lot, and that gets them into trouble whenever they're hiring an attorney. You really can't do anything about the fact that someone is going to sue you over and over and over. Anybody can sue anybody. Unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. But removing yourself from getting involved in the toxicity of it, and not, once you become prey to that system, if you allow it to overcome your life, that's when you've really fallen short. However, if you constantly keep that perspective, then you don't feed into as many of the games that keep you turning in a circle.
So would that mean possibly walking away from everything that you want or you think you're entitled to? I mean, like, because sometimes what I see are parents who they tell me that they've been going through a custody battle for 10, 15, 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they often will say, I know I'm not going to win, but I have to keep fighting. I have to keep fighting. What would your recommendation be in that? I mean, I'm not an attorney, and I often say, well, if you know you're not going to win, and this has been 18 years and your kid's about to age out of the system, then maybe this isn't the best path forward.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you can't be an advocate or fight in other ways, but does that mean, how can people deal with that, especially if they don't have the money for perhaps to mount a huge legal defense case?
Yeah, if they don't have the money, then just keep being present as a parent. Like, if you don't have the money to do it, and eventually they're going to use the resources that they have to take your child away from you just by being able to consistently go to court over and over and over, then you can still be present in your child's life to where when they do turn 18 and they're allowed to kind of have their own reign over their life again, you re-enter as if nothing happened. This is only 18 years. I mean, in the reality of life, it's a drop in the bucket of the whole scheme. Children know which parent alienated them. I can tell you right now, I specifically know which one of my parents alienated me. They are very aware. And when I got to college, I rebuilt the relationship with the other parent because I knew what was happening. And children are very aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so have faith that your child is going to come back to you if you consistently are present. You still have to be there, write them letters. If all of your cards and letters and everything are being blocked, go to the school, go to the places where they are, take them to lunch, go have lunch with them, see them after school. I mean, you can, where there's a will, there's a way. If you want to see your child, you're going to make it happen one way or another. Be present, be consistently present. Don't badmouth the other parent, but just say, I love you and I'm here and nobody can take you away from me. I love you and I'm here and nobody can take you away from me. Not so-and-so's trying to take you away from me and I'm not going to let them. They're not going to hear you say that, but they are going to hear you say, I love you and I'm here and I'm not going to let anybody take you away from me. It's all in how you phrase it. Again, this is a chess game. This is about very sophisticated levels of communication is what it takes to get through the brokenness of family court. That's the only way you can combat it.
Great. Well, thank you for that great answer. Nikki Verawood has a question. I think it could be for me or both of us. Pennsylvania legislators are holding a public hearing on December 9th for HB 1397, a bill that would default to shared parenting. Any plans to help push this bill forward? So I'll answer that first. In that National Parents Organization has a chapter in Pennsylvania that's being led by Stephen Meehan, and he has been instrumental in getting this hearing up and running. And National Parents Organization is doing everything we can to support, and we will have a presence there on that day. And we'll also be holding trainings for people who want to testify or are testifying virtually to help them prep for their comments. And if anyone is planning to talk to any lawmaker, always keep your message child focused and don't mention your own story. You can just say this is an issue close to your heart. If asked, you can always say, something very brief like, unfortunately, I'm a victim of the family court system and my relationship with the child has been damaged as a result, and I don't want that to happen to any other child. But don't say, in 1992, I met a man who then did this and then did that, and then I got a lawyer, but then I got this. Don't do that, because people don't want to get involved in others people's fighting and arguing. And I always just think, when you're at a dinner party, the quickest way to kill a dinner party or a night out with friends is if two of your friends begin to argue, a couple. That's when everyone says, oh, gotta go, have to leave. So always keep it about the child, the public health aspect, and limiting trauma. So any thoughts on or suggestions for the people who will be going to the hearing in Pennsylvania?
Keep it positive. Your message has to be positive at all times. Positive energy and positive messaging gets so much attention. If you come in negative, then people immediately start to block it. But if you come in warm and positive and excited and believing already that the change is going to happen, then that's where you're going to make that effort. I mean, if you look in history, the movements of this world that were based on positivity happened like that. The movements of this world that were based on fear and hatred and anger took forever. We do not want this to take forever. This is going to happen in this country in the next 5 years. And we are all part of this. We just need to keep the momentum going and stay positive, because that's what will help this. And it's good for the kids. Like, we want to keep this message positive. It's too close for all of us. It's too close. I've had crazy experiences with this world. We have to stay positive to get through it.
That's a great point, Ashley-Nicole. And on that note, remember, if you are saying that you're a parent who can't see your kids, you always have to show up as the person who people need to say, wow, I can't believe that parent doesn't have access to their kids because they look like such a wonderful person and wonderful parent. And this is a horrible tragedy that this is happening. Not, your behavior should never lead anyone to believe, oh, there must be some reason or something they're not saying. So always be super positive. And if you are too emotional, sometimes it's better not to show up or not to speak. And you can play a supportive role, sending out emails, gathering signatures. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. But if you are too emotional, you should not be the person speaking to representatives about shared parenting. So Ashley-Nicole, I think we're almost out of time. Tell everybody who maybe joined late where they can find you, where they can find your book. We'll also post the websites and all of your contact information there. But if people want to learn more about the work that you do, where can they find you? And any closing words for all of the parents who just want to be there for their kids after divorce and separation?
I understand that this is a very intense time that you're going through, and know that there are so many people in this world that support you and understand exactly where you're coming from. Reach out to the people who will be positive in this space in your life. Reach out and search for the people who are going to uplift you and bring you up. Do not go to the people who are going to wallow in the misery with you. We can get out of this. You can get out of this. You have to believe it first. That is the very first thing. When you drive your car, you cannot stare at the hood. You have to stare at the plotted point that you're trying to go to. If you're staring at the hood, you're going to be in the ditch. If you're staring at your hearing that you just had, you're in the ditch. If you're staring at next week, you're in the ditch. You need to be thinking about when they turn 18 and the amazing relationship you're going to have and everything that you're doing between now and then to make sure it's going to be perfect. So we're here for you. My name's Ashley-Nicole Russell. I am a child of divorce. I'm divorced and I'm a divorce attorney. And so I've got a great perspective. You can follow me at A&R Law. You can find me on Amazon with The Cure for Divorce Culture. Please read it. It has lots of tips and things that you would want to understand. It explains what's happened in this country and how we got to this terrible place, and also how to get out of it. It's the full recipe. So read it. Reach out if you need anything. My firm and all of our staff are here to help. We practice in North Carolina, but we consult people all over the country on how to get through conflict and how to effectively resolve conflict. So let us know if you need any help. And Ginger, thanks so much. I feel like we're coming from the East Coast, you're coming from the West Coast, and we're going to change this country.
We're all going to come together, and I'm so glad that you are working with national parents organizations and a lot of other great organizations out there, because as a child of divorce and an attorney, your voice is so needed. And I have a feeling that a lot of change is coming now that more children of divorce are getting involved with this.
Yes.
And because we have a time limit on this.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get this fixed ASAP so no more children suffer. And we're going to be very practical about it. And if it doesn't work, we're going to find another tactic.
Yep.
And we're going to build alliances, and we are bringing people into this big tent because
Yes.
it's an issue that affects everybody.
There's so much air going under this balloon right now. So have faith in that. If you're in a hard spot right now, have faith in the fact that there are a ton of people putting a lot of energy into this, and we're right there working for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ashley-Nicole. Have a good night. And thanks everybody for listening. And remember and watching, please share the video if you haven't already. It takes 1 second. Share it on your own page and in other groups. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.